Greetings. This is Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. I am on campus here at Western Michigan, joined by Kathy Beauregard. Kathy is the Director of Athletics here at Western Michigan. Greetings, Kathy. Thanks for having me on campus.
It's awesome to have you here in Kalamazoo and at Western Michigan.
I am happy to be here. I've been at a couple other schools around over the last few weeks, and I'm happy to sit down with you. I don't see you on a lot of media and things, so I was real excited when you agreed to do this interview.
Oh, well, thank you for the opportunity. Certainly excited to be able to spend some time with you.
Now, you've been an AD here at Western Michigan for 25 or 26 years.
That's correct.
Right, long time in the chair. And really at the school for, is it 40 years or almost 40 years?
Yes, it is.
Spent some time coaching gymnastics.
I did.
And then work your way through athletics. Really one position that kind of covered everything, and then ended up being the athletic director. So excellent career. I want to talk to you about a couple things here, especially for someone like you who has been in the chair so long. And I think most of your staff are decades-long staffers too, right?
We do have some longevity. People like it here at Western Michigan and Kalamazoo. That is true.
So in a situation like that, you think about having new ideas and fresh ideas, creativity.
Mm-hmm.
People could possibly get content, right? I wonder about how you keep fresh thoughts and creativity in an institution where you and your team have been together for so long.
Excellent question. You wake up every morning asking yourself the same thing. Yeah. So obviously I have been here as a coach. When I was hired as a coach, I was hired because of Title IX and opportunities for women to be hired full-time for sports. It was a Title IX settlement. So when I was hired, 23 years old, coming in as a college coach who thought she knew what she was doing, sold herself, believed it, got in the job, and then figured out, wow, I have a lot to learn and to do. So I'm a person who believes very strongly in if my future was not a place that I'm just going, it was a place that I was creating. So I even think back to my first time of coaching, didn't have assistant coaches. You were a one-person show, but not really hired, but you had your student athletes that you selected, you chose, you found, you did, and figured out how to build that into a championship program, which we did. So I would tell you that I think when many people see me, know me, will tell you is that I am full of energy, positivity. Negativism brings way too much wasted energy. So very excited when we were able to win a couple championships, then move into the athletic administration side of it. And you're kind of doing the same thing. You're hiring people, just as I was with student athletes, that in my case, I wanted people around me that will tell me things I might not want to hear and ones that I can trust. So at that time, we had several different athletic directors that we all worked for. And then there was an opportunity in 1997. Jim Weaver had been hired the year before, had a chance to go be the AD at Virginia Tech. And then it was my time. So I was one of 7 women at that time that was hired, which is also different and has always been a different way as I've gone through my career of being able to set the goals and challenges, recognizing that nothing's easy. Nothing just ever happens, and you have to be able to adjust, create, change, not be afraid of it. Sometimes people look at you. When I told them that we were going to turn around and bring a football program to a major bowl game, they all look at you like, really? And we're actually going to fill the football stadium. So athletics we didn't necessarily we grew a lot during those years, and a lot of that was finding collaboration, finding partnerships, and then being able to adjust and adapt every day.
Yeah, which is interesting. Thinking back, experience brings us perspective and wisdom, right?
It does.
And, you get into the chair, and, you've been here 25, the first 5 to 10 years, right? You have your own thought process and how you solve problems and those type of habits. But now you're in the chair, you're tenured, and I wonder about the difference in how you approach things 25 years ago to how you approach things
now? Well, it is, first of all, the world of intercollegiate athletics is ever
25
changing.
years is 1,000 years
It's
in
a
college.
lot of time.
Exactly.
So I can tell you one thing that I definitely know, if it hadn't been for the peers and the individuals that I worked with and learned from in the Mid-American Conference, I wouldn't be where I am today. So here's an example. Gene Smith was the athletic director at Eastern Michigan when I first started in administration. And to this day, Gene is still somebody that I have learned from and watch and listen and talk to every day. So those relationships, the collaboration, not being afraid to put yourself out there, ask the questions, learn, find ways. I think the one thing that I have also been known for and that I believe in strongly is we do it the right way. So high moral, ethical standards is important for myself, just as is important for the staff that I hire, just as important as the student athletes you recruit. So it's a big part of making sure that you can lead from the top, whether that's me or whether that goes to the head coaches. It comes from the president, that I'm on the president's leadership team. There's good decisions that are made. Sometimes nobody's without mistakes. I've learned from mistakes along the way. But the other part was I tried to really get involved in the NCAA at that time. There weren't a lot of women that were on NCAA committees because I was early in the route and had opportunities that most people don't have early on, that I am so thankful for. So it's nice now. We were ahead of ourselves in the MAC. When I was hired, there were actually 3 women. We were the most that we'd ever been, and we also had men of color. Right now, we're in a situation where we have probably one of the most inclusive, diversified leagues. When we look at a lot of our new ADs, 3 other women. And so we have 4 women and it's kind of been fun for me because the new ones that have been hired are a good 25 years back. So it's really fun for me now to see where they are and the experience they have coming in and where their futures are going to be to be able to go. But it's great to be able to answer questions for them and kind of help them mentoring and working along the way.
For them, I mean, you're one of the first calls I would have made. I'm like, she's been here. She's probably dealt with a lot of things I'm going to deal with. Well, not the last couple of years, but she's probably dealt with a lot of things that I'm probably going to deal with over even the first 6 months. I wonder if Kathy would give me some direction.
Yeah, and I can tell you those calls came, which really made me feel great. It was truly a situation where Central Michigan is our main rival. And when they hired their new director, she came from Texas, overly qualified, but she called right away. And was one of the first calls, and we did end up playing and having a game up there this year, which was great to get to know her. But it's like, well, we've heard about Kathy, but I didn't have an opportunity to know her. So I appreciate being able to assist and mentor anybody along the way. I think I added it up, and I've worked with over like 90 different ADs through my time through the league. So
wow, that's interesting. So you look at when we do things over and over again, we create habits, right? And you think about problem solving. When you have the experience you have, it would seem that, you can something will come up and you think back to how you solved a similar problem in the past and you want to apply the solution to this new problem. But sometimes that doesn't work, right? There are nuances.
It doesn't.
So I wonder about your problem-solving method. Do you have a methodology, or do you just approach it with intuition? Or tell me how you and your staff.
Well, I will tell you that I rely a lot on my staff. I am one that will like input. You can tell me what we need to hear, how we're going to get to this next place, what's positives and negatives of it. I'm one that may overanalyze. I've been guilty of that. Sometimes people say, well, won't you just make the decision? But in my own mind, I do have to look at the positives, the negatives, the way that I actually think my way through. I do look back at other situations that were similar, but I think that's one of the things that has been so unique is you can take some of those pieces from maybe 2 or 3 different circumstances. It's almost nothing is ever the same. And then be able to say, well, we learned this here, and so let's maybe try this way this time. And as our sport has changed, NCAA has changed, student athletes have changed, All of what we've been able to do, I think it's like me, I've said, I need to learn something new in technology every day because it just doesn't come natural to me, but that's where the world is. So I make myself do those things that I might not normally do. I want to come out with something new every single day that I can go home, be exhausted from, but also be able to say, okay, I challenged myself at this extra today, and tomorrow I do sleep on decisions, and then the morning we'll be ready to go.
Do it. I wonder, do you? I imagine you do, but do you? You hire. You hired a real young football coach. You've hired coaches different ages, different backgrounds. Do you look at what they do and learn on how they solve problems and how they approach leadership? I mean, you can learn from everybody, right?
You do. It's definitely, and I think especially in football, it was kind of who is right for the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And from one coach to the next, they may have left or they may have not been invited back. What are your creative pieces? One of the things that I also believe I'm unique with is, especially early on, there were a lot of women who weren't married and had a son. So it wasn't like I had any other women mentors that you go to your first meetings and I realized that they're all men and there's no lines in the women's bathroom.
Yeah, right.
So to do that, but raising a son was another, and my husband, he's in this was a family commitment.
He was a coach,
all across the board.
Yeah.
He was a coach, but it's a commitment in so many different ways. So even raising a son kind of put me in a dimension of kind of watching an age group of where we were going to go, what we were going to do, which is the time we made the change and hired Coach Fleck. So many people were like, he hasn't been a coordinator. He hasn't been, there were a lot of doubters out there. And it definitely was it was one of those that I believed when I met him. We looked at a lot of other things, had definitely qualifications. The other thing I think is really important is that I talk to the athletes. You've got to get to know them. So I do, my family does, and we've gone to games for all sports our whole life. That has been our social life along with my professional life. Right. And luckily, they enjoyed all of that too. But getting to know the student athletes, talking to them, sharing with them, even when we hired Coach Fleck. And then I did the same thing when Coach Fleck left and Coach Lester came, talk to the athletes. What do you want? What are we looking for? What do we need? Because it changes. It changes constantly. What kind of a game do we want to, what are we playing? We've always had strong quarterbacks here. And so, that part of our receiving core and those. So every hire is different. I have not used search firms.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yep. Right. It's kind of like it's been, I don't know. We have people that have been here that know the community, that know us, that know our university, that know, now I'm not saying anything against them because there are wonderful ways to also vet and get to different opportunities, but I have used some of those people. So a lot of times I'll call a lot of colleagues around the country, and asking for names, getting input, doing that too. So
one thing I wonder, you mentioned talking to athletes. Can you recall a moment where you've learned something from an athlete, right? And that was an excellent idea. Let's go do that or something like that.
Every day. Every day. So being involved in the recruiting process is important to me. So I tell all the coaches whenever they want me to be involved in the recruiting, meeting with the family, meeting with the students, that's what I was. I was a coach. I know you've got to get those moms and you've got to get those dads and you've got to get whatever the situation happens to be with families. One of the things that I'm most proud of is we are a first generation school here at Western Michigan. We're allowing opportunities of a lifetime to students that have never been around higher education. And so they're talking with them, getting to know them, listening to them, watching them, travel with them. When earbuds first came in to the conversations about academics and the conversations about what do we need to be doing more in the, training room or what can we be doing in those types of areas. And the other thing that's really important to me is staying connected. So I am still connected. There still are, and been here for so long. You have so many, just like Zach Taro, who was our quarterback, works in town, and I had a 2-hour conversation with him the other night, just talking about his football season and his job and what we're doing.
Which is an excellent constant evaluation point, right?
It is
Student
totally.
athletes, former student athletes who are in town.
And that's, listen, after going through the year we went through with COVID and the world and what challenges that brought to us, if it hadn't been literally as difficult as that was across the country, no matter what type of a profession you were in, if it wasn't for those student athletes and believing that we were going to play for them and they weren't playing in front of crowds, they were testing. We were in situations where they were pods. They weren't going home. They weren't interacting with groups. And it was tough. It's really tough. So I can't wait for, your freshmen are going to end up coming back. And because we didn't really get to know that group last year.
Yeah, right.
In all of our sports.
Team dynamics
because we weren't with them the way we did. But I stay home and go to as many games here as we can, but I also travel on the road. Family, we do that. So football and every team that we've done some traveling on the road, so you get a different read. You get a different read from them too with that, and develop relationships with parents.
Right.
So that's the other thing that's really
excellent,
fun to do.
Gymnastic coach, right?
Yes.
I imagine you still follow the sport. Right?
I do.
Things are exciting right now. Simone and Jordan. There are a lot of excitement around gymnastics and the Olympics. Talk to me about your perspective on what you're seeing and how you feel about it.
Well, I go back to the day of Nadia Comaneci and Mary Lou Retton and watching the sport just evolve. And there had never in my, even though I'm a little partial to the sport of gymnastics, I would tell you from an Olympic opportunity, from watching these young women and young girls at sometimes, for the young girls coming up, having an opportunity to see the success, the commitment, the dedication, the finesse, the sacrifice, because that is a sport that I just would challenge anyone to say that Simone Biles may be the best athlete in the world right now. Right. Because when you look at strength, stamina, possession, just everything that she is able to still do. And it's things that I never would imagine 20 years could even be done. And most people can't think of how they walk on a 4-inch.
Yeah, right.
4 inches, let alone she's doing what she's doing. And just won the Olympic trials, not even doing part of her own.
She has a move named after her,
which is
interesting, right?
A couple of them.
I wondered, this is veering way off, but even though the things she does are there, so when you look at somebody at an athlete who is an artist and what they do, sometimes things look easy. They make it look easy, but sometimes things look like that doesn't look like it would be easy at all. So from a gymnast coach perspective, talk about some of the things she does and how you.
Well, it is a mental.
And are those coached when you have an athlete like that? Are you coaching that, or is she?
There's both. Right. You have to find you can draw it out, and there's also natural ability. Right. So sometimes I had one of the strongest, best athletes I had didn't necessarily believe she was really that good. And some believed they were that good and weren't that good. The other thing I love to draw on is the fact that one of our championship seasons, we were ranked 4th out of the league, and we went in and won the championship, and we weren't the best team there. Right. So there is a lot of coaching to that, but there is also just the mental practice that has to happen. And that's with all sports now, but the mental capacity for her to believe she can do that. And you talk about her vault that she's going to be doing at the Olympics that she didn't do in the trials, that's named after her too. It's a triple double back that men don't even do, and some of the stuff she does on the floor. Wow. So she is uniquely special and has been through a lot in her life, a lot in her career. But the injury aspect, just the slipping, it's just 1 minute from whatever, and she has found a great match in her coaches, which is really important. Right. You've got to, but you also have to figure out. So before each gymnast goes up, you have to figure out what's going to make her tick. So it might be not talking to her. So you can watch the coach with some of them. It might be just saying, "This, remember this on your handstand, remember this on the dismount." So each gymnast, even when I coach, you had to say something different. Some of you don't say anything.
Oh, wow.
And so you just, they're
How
there.
they're made up.
Yep, they are. So we have a strong program here too.
All right.
So we're very excited about our gymnastics program that we offer too. So
yeah, it's interesting. My cousin played at Western Michigan, Larry King Jr., and in talking to him, when he was here, he was playing when I was at Michigan State, and his experience, he valued his experience, and he was a diehard. He is a diehard.
He is a diehard Bronco. Yes.
Bronco, right? You think about the experiences that student athletes have and the celebrations. I think you guys have won 2 championships since being here in football. I think you won some when you were coaching gymnastics, right?
Yep.
There are times when you have the highest celebrations, and then there are times when the challenges are tougher than you would want to deal with, but you're in a leadership position, so you have to deal with it, whether it be players getting injured or even players passing away, or obviously COVID, or even addressing the racial reconciliation in the country. I wonder how you stay even, right, when times are challenging, but then in celebrations, you definitely want to celebrate, but you still, as a leader, got to stay even then too. So talk to me about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a real balance, and sometimes it's a matter of when you control your emotions and when you don't, and at times that gets very difficult. Times you can't, and it's okay. It's okay. We lost a student athlete in the middle of right after the George Floyd scenario. That was not a good situation for him or for our athletes to be in. We just passed the year mark of his memorial re-celebration. Our team did of we've had some sad, scary times. We had a gymnast break her neck who was at practice, who was the trainer, athletic trainer. Actually, she jumped up, he put her down, and if he had just been a quarter of a whatever, she would have been paralyzed.
Right.
Then you go to the dream of, some of the games. I'll go back to Cotton Bowl year. We played at Northwestern. Last play of the game, controversial play. Was it a touchdown or not?
Right.
If it's called one way, we don't end up with an undefeated season. It went our way.
Yeah.
So the rest of the year. So you look back, sometimes it takes luck. Sometimes you celebrate more because of the circumstances that an athlete has had to come back with. We did have a gymnast this year that came. She had an aunt and an uncle that both passed from COVID, and she competed that weekend. So it's amazing what each has to kind of, through the coach, through the athlete, through us, through the trainer, figure out mentally, is it the wrong thing? Some, there's more to, I've got to do this for what I do. But there is no doubt you need to know your coaching staff. It's important that we hire who we hire. We need to make sure that they're looking out for the best for those athletes all the time, 100% of the time, and even more today. I think we are definitely coming off of COVID. Is going to be very interesting. The amount of, just the amount of sacrifice people had, but the ability to open back up. We're still going through vaccines, no vaccines. Will there be testing? So every single day, I think over the last year and a half, for the first couple months there, it was Zoom calls from 7 a.m. until midnight.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out
right.
what COVID was, what the rules were going to be, what we were going to do as a back with it. It was the most unbelievable mental time I had ever been through. And it trains you differently for each of those things.
I wonder, do AD, this is a general question that you probably can only answer for yourself, but do ADs go home to their families and cry because the day was so tough and things, there's so much pressure?
Yeah, they definitely are. Sometimes it's, I think my husband, he can tell my mood the minute I walk in. We live about 25 minutes from campus, which is kind of nice, to be honest with you. It gives me a little debriefing time. It's very similar even with my son. So when we just had an issue that happened, and the first call that came to me was from my son because he knew what that was going to mean inside, and what it would really mean to me, even though you have to be here.
You gotta be there.
You do present. Have, there's times it's emotional,
yeah.
and you do. And there's other times you have to, you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. I mean, decisions are made, and we're all a part of it. It's kind of where we are with the NCAA right now. We're at a crossroads.
Yeah,
We're at
what's
a
happening?
crossroads in intercollegiate athletics right now with the NCAA, the Supreme Court, the paying of athletes,
All kind of things
the
everywhere.
conferences, the getting the athletes back.
College
I mean,
football
it's
playoff,
just
everything's
college
going,
football
yeah.
playoff. We are right now. I mean, every time you think you go through these phases, and I'm like, wow, last year COVID in itself was a lot.
Right.
But coming out now, figuring out what we are going to be, excited about opportunities that the college football playoff people are talking about. Inclusion definitely of, you know, all of us, the autonomous and the non-autonomous. Lots of work to be done there. Same thing is true with the others. But I think that's another thing that excites me. Mm-hmm. This job is never the same one day to the next. It never is. I don't know. I'll come in with a whole plan thinking you're going to do one thing, and you leave not getting one thing checked off your list. So sometimes you just don't make the list.
Right. There are, you mentioned a number of things that are changing. There are a number of people who are retiring. And they're stepping away from the chair. You mentioned a couple young people who are coming into the chair. Not young, but new to the chair.
Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, that can be exciting, right?
It's interesting for me because I got into being a director. I was young at the time for that too. So I looked at the people that were 10, 15, 20 years older as what I am now. So it's very different of what I've been through, what I've gone through, what my time was of where sports is compared to where we're going next. So yes, many of my colleagues, there's been more retirements, I think, this year than ever because it's an entirely different, you're going to find it coaches too, because some of the coaches are just like, do I want to deal with the transfer portal?
Right,
Talk about a whole new world. That in itself is changing where we're going to be. It kind of started with the grad transfers, and now it's anybody can, and anybody can come and recruit you right from underneath you. So that's going to be interesting to kind of go through those waters too. And I'm excited for this next few times. You know, as we get going here, I know that I believe, obviously, we've had budget reductions. We've had the COVID to go through. We've got building to come back. We've got the community. I think the most exciting thing that we're hearing is our community is so excited for us to come back and be full strength and to really rally. We have a city here in Kalamazoo that we call us the Communiversity and celebrate it for community university in the city of Kalamazoo.
Right.
We're all one, and we all grow together. We celebrate together and we go through sacrifice together at different times when you have things, but we can't do it without one another. And that's the collaboration that we've been able to build on, and really looking forward to. Michigan's had it tough as far as the amount of time. We were closed down more than most. The businesses that are not here anymore, unemployment. So there's a lot of challenges just with the state itself. And number of students going to college, higher education costs. I mean, there's just so many things that take you into that I'm still excited about it and challenged for that. I think I'll know someday when it's okay. But right now I'm back at that point of his rebuild again of what we have lost in the last few years based on where America's been.
I asked this last question, and then we'll wrap. Thinking about, AthleticDirectorU, we try to stay evergreen so somebody can watch this 2 or 3 years from now and still get something from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't come here and talk to you without thinking about this over $500 million gift that the school received. $550 million, I believe.
$550 million.
Right. $300 million to the medical school.
That's correct.
$200 to the school in general.
Correct.
And then $50 come to athletics,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, gymnastics term, after you went in the back room and did a back handspring,
which right? I did, not a very good one, but it's right. when the president told me that the deal was, this gift is the largest to a public university in the country.
Did you know before, or was it news to you like it was to us? I imagine you were in the know if something was happening, maybe.
Well, we're always working. We're always working on collaborations, alumni, alumni giving, relationship building. I think of the one thing I would say after growing up in Kalamazoo, my father was a banker, my mom, I mean, there was reputation even when I was hired of already having a lot of relationships in town. I was blessed and lucky with that. Um, what we have done is fundraising along the way. So, and it's going to be more important in the future. So, we're coming up on a capital campaign that will be announced. I'm not exactly sure when,
Okay.
but this gift was anonymous gift that are from a couple alums that truly are Broncos. They love Western Michigan and the opportunity they had here. And they also want to be able to provide that opportunity, but in a very unique way to our university. So the med school has done so much. It's WMed. It's a private medical school. 10 years we just celebrated. It has brought so many opportunities in the field of medicine where both of our hospitals merged. The med school is a part of that.
Right. Okay.
And we have grown and been blessed by what we have right here available to us
Yeah,
because
which
of
is
that,
excellent.
which is going to need continued funding opportunities because it's private. It's not, doesn't use state funding. So that is a huge commitment because that is really the community concept. But we also have in there an individual that they've hired that works with diversity for those individuals that are interested in getting into med school.
Okay.
So we're even working with them. We're working with mental health with them. We're doing some more. I'm excited. We have a new dean too. We need to still get together and look at more collaborative things we can do together. We do have nursing school. We do have PT. We do have, we have a lot of the science programs ourselves. So I think those are going to be excited at what more can we collaborate on. The other money certainly came in, $200 million of that for the president to be able to designate. It is an endowment. This is entirely gift is an endowed over a 10-year process. And so the money of the 200 and the opportunities here are truly for inclusive, innovative opportunities for us in particular, for our student athlete welfare, and it's for us. So the 50 million is for us to be able to. It will be a 10-year payoff of opportunities for 5 million a year that will be endowed, and will be a great way. We started a huge diversity initiative. We have the largest population on campus, and want to be able to collaborate, work with. After we started, we had our student athletes, coaches, and staff working on this committee that came up with our name of We Must Unite, which stands for WMU with We Must Unite, and have a plan in place that we're not going to just talk about change, we're going to create change and work together with that and our community. And then this money also will be having an opportunity for us to provide educational, mental health, not necessarily, hiring staff, doing, coaches, any of those things. It's really for the others to really provide the whole inclusive experience for our student athletes to come out with.
So it's excellent, right? Because, I mentioned a couple of people that I'm coming to talk to you, and they say, well, find out, if that's earmarked, they might have to build a new tennis facility and that's all you use it for. But if not, you have a number of things you can do, right? And so it sounds like, if I can paraphrase,
yes,
the money was given and they want you to create opportunities to educate and really help develop the environment and just student athletes in general in diversity, in mental health, and you can define on your own, I guess, how
we want to do that. I think internships, opportunities that we can provide them for internships and for job preparation, creativity that way. So it's going to be an endowment, which is really exciting for Kathy to be able to have gotten this gift, that as it grows through the endowment, and you're looking at 5 million a year, you're not spending that per year. You're watching it grow so that literally 5 to 10 years from now, you're going to have grown a substantial endowment that'll be a lifetime for intercollegiate athletics. ahead of me.
Yeah, that's
So
excellent.
I look every day. I think that's the one thing I talk about is being a futuristic person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've done every day is how can we futuristically be better? What are we planning today that's going to make us that much better tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't know if there's a bigger dream that I could have had to know that in an uncertainty of our financial world right now and the opportunity to still provide what's most important, they can come, play the sport they love, be coached by a coach that is, nationally recognized, be able to win championships, but also be able to learn lessons of life, which is a huge part of that, but also mentors. So we have what's called the Kalamazoo Promise in Kalamazoo. We were the first ones with this that are Kalamazoo Public School students are guaranteed at any state in the state of any institution of the state of Michigan to have their college degree paid for.
Oh, wow.
So we are a huge recipient of that at Western Michigan, of Kalamazoo students who have decided to come to Western for that too. So we're very blessed with philanthropy here in town and really for the overall best interest of human rights,
Yeah, human rights.
social justice, and opportunities to in the Mid-American Conference, you win a championship, you go to the NCAA, and then we get the recognition that we can also provide for the student and for our university and our community.
Right, which is excellent. If you would, you mentioned something right at the beginning about when you started off, you mentioned something about the future, creating the future. What was that you said again?
I have always believed that the future is just not a place I'm going, but it's a place I'm creating.
Right.
So when I came in at 23 years old and I thought I could be the head gymnastics coach, there certainly were people better than I.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was the first choice. So I'm like, does that really matter? So Chris Hoyles is the person who hired me. Another person, she said, if she's been offered the job, but she's up for a job at Iowa, if she takes Iowa, it's yours. Well, you know what? It was me. And that's what I tell our student athletes today. It doesn't matter what number you were in the job that you got. I applied for the AD's job once before I got the AD's job. You just got to keep going for what you believe in. And I didn't grow up thinking I'd ever be an AD. It wasn't such a thing. There really wasn't. I knew I wanted sport. I knew I wanted coaching. I knew I wanted to impact lives. I knew I'm a strong believer in education overall, big education family and what that does for all of us and how we could create that and make it better and impact student lives. And that's why I do what I do, because there are some days that you could easily say,
what am I doing this for?
Wow. But I love it. And I guess the day that I decide that, challenges get to the point, because it is a challenge every day. There isn't. And you have really good days and some other ones that are very difficult. But I'm blessed with a great family, parents, 2 sisters, and my husband that have all, my son, of course.
Yeah. That calls and checks on his mother, right?
Yes, he does.
Well, Kathy, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you hosting me here at Western Michigan University and joining us on AthleticDirectorU.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and go Broncos.
Yes, ma'am. That was Kathy Beauregard. She's the Director of Athletics here at Western Michigan University. And of course, I am Ty Brown with AthleticDirectorU. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.